How's it going, everyone? I'm Matt from Universal Audio, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Anthem Analog Synthesizer. Anthem was built for sculpting raw, expressive sounds, from huge basses to powerful leads and evolving sequences, putting the biggest, baddest analog sounds right at your fingertips with hundreds of awesome presets to get you started. Now, we're going to cover all of Anthem's features in this video, but before we get there, let's hear what it sounds like. Anthem is designed with an intuitive left-to-right layout with all the controls available on the main screen, which means you can get to your sound quickly without any menu diving. Now let's take a look at the oscillator section. Here we have Anthem's two analog modeled oscillators, and to give you an idea of just how fat these sound, let's check out this track by our friend Dean Coleman, where the main bass patch is a raw, unfiltered saw wave coming straight out of Anthem. To access the other oscillator shapes like triangle, saw, and pulse, adjust the black knob in the center, which allows you to smoothly morph between the shapes. What's really cool about this is we can actually modulate each oscillator shape to inject some movement and expression into our sounds. To do this, use the silver knob on the outside to control the amount of modulation, and then use the switch below to set the modulation source. Now to hear this on some chords, let's head over to the voice section in the bottom right corner and switch to paraphonic mode, which gives us 4 different voices to play with. Keep in mind that even in paraphonic mode, all 4 voices are still fed through the same filter and VCA, which you can think of as a creative limitation that unlocks new sounds and playing styles. Now for that example, I was using the filter envelope as the modulation source, but we can also switch over to the LFO to get some classic PWM sounds using the pulse shapes on the right side of the knob. There's also a control that lets you modulate the pitch of both oscillators, which is great for dialing in 808s and drum sounds. And finally, there's this really cool warp control on Oscillator 2 that lets us dial in more experimental ring mod and hard sync sounds. Now let's talk about the filter. This analog modeled low-pass filter is the heart of Anthem and where so much of its character comes from thanks to its gritty harmonics and squelchy resonance. I'm going to solo just the drums and bass in my demo session. Let's hear the effect that the filter has on this withered spoon bass preset. Now to make it easier to adjust these filter controls in real time, I'm going to map them to a couple knobs on my MIDI controller using MIDI Learn. So I'll just click this Learn button in the top right corner of the Anthem window, then I'll click on the cutoff knob, and then I'll move the knob on my controller that I want to map. And now I can adjust that control without ever touching my mouse. So I'll go ahead and repeat that process for the resonance control, and let's go ahead and hear what this sounds like. Now this filter gets pretty dirty on its own, but for even crunchier sounds, you can use this drive control, which lets you get more saturation by driving a hotter signal into the filter section. Listen to how it fattens up this bass patch while also calming down some of that high frequency resonance. Now let's take a look at growl. This control changes the way the filter's cutoff responds to the raw oscillator signal, and can be used to add some grit to resonant sounds, or even dial up formant filter-like effects. Now the resonance, drive, and growl controls all interact with each other pretty heavily, so the effect of any one of these knobs is highly dependent on the settings of the others. In this case, I'm going to raise the resonance control until it just barely starts to self-oscillate. Then I'll bring in that growl control so you hear how it changes the effect of the resonance, and finally I'll bring in drive to calm down those high frequencies. Last but not least, in the filter section, we also have the standard key tracking and modulation controls, as well as a high-pass filter that can optionally be modulated using those same controls. Now let's check out one of my favorite features, the step sequencer, which is incredible for adding movement and accents or even generating new ideas from scratch. Let's check it out on this plucky patch based on the Funkified preset. Now let's come in here and turn on the step sequencer. As you can see, I already have a simple 8-step melodic sequence programmed, which is pretty similar to a rising arpeggio, except I'm able to repeat certain notes or change the octave of certain notes to create even more interesting patterns. And if I go to the gate and velocity tabs, I can also add some rhythmic flourishes by changing the length and intensity of each note. Let's hear what that sounds like. The slider at the bottom of each tab sets the number of steps, and typically you would have these linked so that each tab has the same number of steps, but you can actually unlink them as well by clicking the icon to the left, and then if you set each tab to a different number of steps, you can create some interesting rhythms that evolve over time. Now to spice this sound up, let's move down to the effects section. Anthem's effects are all analog modeled with tons of lo-fi vibe. You get 3 effects modules, a chorus, modulation effects like phaser and flanger, and space effects like echo and reverb. Now first, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the chorus effect, and you'll notice that even with the intensity knob turned down pretty far, this effect makes pretty much everything sound bigger and better. And now let's add some of the hall reverb into the mix to hear what that sounds like. A trick that I like to use to make simple sequences like this more interesting is to load up a BPM sync delay and automate the amount to only grab onto certain notes and create a beat repeat like effect. Now let's go ahead and switch the space effects module over to the echo and hear what that sounds like. Now I've recorded that in as automation. Let's go ahead and hear what it sounds like in context. So hopefully that gives you some ideas for how you can use Anthem in your tracks. I've been having a lot of fun using it in my own productions, especially alongside our other synths like Opal and Polymax. Now for anything I didn't cover here, you can check out the product manual at help.uaudio.com. And be sure to subscribe to the Universal Audio YouTube channel for more videos like these. I'll see you next time.